Hi everyone, my name is Ana Caragea and welcome to Career Backstage podcast. Today we have Ana Caragea and we will be talking about how to master the energy, the masculine energy and feminine energy in the workplace. Welcome Ana to the first episode of Career Backstage podcast. Ana is the co-founder and co-CEO at Awarelee company and she has 7 years experience in coaching. Anna, once again, welcome to Career Backstage podcast and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Diana. Nice to see you here. And hi, everybody present here. To be honest, this is a tricky question, I believe, for almost everybody, especially for introverts when we have to introduce ourselves. So I'll try my best to keep it as short as possible. But in a nutshell, I was fascinated about psychology and I saw myself as a therapist while I was studying in high school. And then I pursued at university sociology and psychology to develop my skills in this field. But then life happened. I've changed a bit my interests. So I started flying as a cabin crew, which led me to about 38 countries. So that was a really nice experience to be able to fly in so many places, especially now in this time that we cannot fly. I am so blessed that I was able to do that before. And then while I was flying, I was thinking, you know what, I want to come back to my initial passion to understand more about psychology. So then I pursued the career of coaching and training. So here we are today, 7 years after I started as a coach. And I'm excited to talk to you about this topic.
Thank you, Anna, so much for your introduction. But before we obviously touch on this topic, how to master masculine and feminine energy in the workplace, so I would like to ask you, what is feminine energy?
So I would say, yeah, because as you know, Google is so big and you can Google search it and find so many definitions. But to simplify it a bit, I saw even masculine and the feminine energy together. We could look at them as traits, behavior traits, and also ways of feeling. So how do we behave and how do we feel what we feel? And based on that, both of them, even the feminine energy and the masculine energy, they have specific characteristics.
Can you tell us this specific characteristics for masculine energy and what are the specific characteristics for feminine energy? So people obviously can identify themselves, for example, when they operate in a workplace, what kind of energy they operate under.
Sure. So I will start with the masculine one. So the masculine one is driven, is linear, is rational, logical, likes competition, likes freedom. It really enjoys to solve problems and gets a high dose of energy while doing that. And the feminine energy is caring, compassionate, kind, intuitive, non-linear, wants to be listened to and wants to be understood. Those are some of the traits. I'm sure on the internet you will find more, but I would say relevant to the work field, those would be top of mind.
Yeah. So do we born with this masculine and feminine energy, or is something that we obviously develop along the way?
We have a dominant energy, either feminine or the masculine one, and it doesn't matter you're a man, woman, you can have either of those. But then what happens throughout the years and the way we socialize and how we learn the behavior, or we do this through observation. So then we can observe there are specific types of behaviors that are rewarded especially. And in the world that we're living, and this is not to judge, it is just to state the facts that we can observe. The more dominant specifically at work is the masculine energy. And that is super relevant when we think about, let's say you work in a sales department, so you have KPIs like in any company, you have specific KPIs, so you're very driven to make your targets. So yeah, that's why we are, even though we are born with a specific energy, we either develop the second one or we inhibit part of it.
So, yeah, what, for example, are the specific factors that lead to the development, let's say, or either of masculine or feminine energy? Because there should be some kind of factors which lead to this development of both energies.
Definitely, it's usually the rewards that we are getting as kids, right? Because we see our parents, we see our grandparents, people on TV. So we see certain behaviors, and then as kids, learning through association, because we want to be safe. In the end of the day, as kids, we want to be safe and we want to play. So instead of us sorry, that is my fire alarm. I'm not sure if you can hear it.
Yeah, I can hear.
You can hear it?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah.
You want to talk a bit more about while the alarm goes so I can mute myself?
I hope everything is okay. So
Usually they have exercises so that those are on. Now it's fine. No. Live
it's a
TV
test.
or live recording.
Okay. Right. So, yeah, we were talking about the factors, obviously, which kind of factors lead to the development either of feminine and masculine energy. How these both energies, masculine and feminine energy, are manifesting in the workplace. Just share with us an example.
So in the workplace, I would say there are specific industries where there is a dominant energy and where the environment per se is more structured. Let's say in the aviation, because I was part of the aviation industry for almost 8 years, there were specific checklists, there were specific procedures that you had to make sure you follow for the safety of the flight and for the safety of everybody working in that field. So even from there, we could see somebody who's thriving on this type of energy will thrive as well in this environment. Whereas somebody more dominant in their feminine energy, more creative, more expansive, will thrive in a creative industry, let's say like design or art or even marketing, because those spaces are catering for those big ideas where you can give yourself permission to dream as far as bold as you can to create something.
And if you can give us an example about feminine energy, because there is a difference, and in which industry we use more feminine energy, and how this is kind of manifesting in the
So
workplace.
definitely the marketing and as I said, design, art, acting. What else? I'm sure there are a lot of other industries. So if you're watching this, type down in the comment. What other industry do you see more feminine traits? Whereas like you have more space to be creative, to come up with things and to just.
What about if we look, for example, at the finance industry and also the management consulting industry? Because there are a lot of corporations that they provide management consultancy services and also financial services. What are the types of energies that are used in those industries?
I would say there are a mixture of them. Definitely, to have a successful company or to like a business to be able to do that correctly, then you need to have certain procedures, certain processes, internal processes, how you deal with clients, how to promote yourself. So it will be a combination. But I think where we get in trouble is when because perhaps we've seen that only a specific energy, more specifically here, the masculine, has been rewarded, then we tend to ignore our feminine side. We tend to disconnect from those skills because in the end of the day, listening, it is a skill, right?
Yeah.
Or caring or paying attention to our intuition. So when we give ourselves, or first of all, become aware that we can have both of those energies and even become successful in their job, that's where we can investigate and learn or come through this process of self-awareness to understand exactly the specific traits and to understand exactly what we need to do to develop more the other traits. Like a great manager or a great leader needs to definitely develop their listening skills, their inquiry skills, to be able to guide the employees to come up with creative ideas. Because when we micromanage, when we dominate the discussion, what we usually do is either we get defensive or we try to excuse a certain behavior if even we did the tiniest mistakes. So that would be detrimental to the development of the team, definitely.
Is, for example, the development of the masculine and feminine energy in the workplace is aligned with the organizational culture, let's say, with the values, with mission, with the vision?
It can become part of that because we can pick up on specific traits that definitely there's so many resources and research out there that has been already conducted on specific traits that can make the company more successful or make the person leading a specific team more successful in their job.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
can pair those with the values, and then when, let's say, a candidate wants to work in that workspace, then they can say, okay, this value is more in line with who I am, how I am, so I feel it will be a better fit for me.
Yeah, why I was asking you this, because, for example, values are interpreted by everyone in, differently. So that's why I can, for example, perceive, let's say, caring values or achievement as more feminine, but for someone it might be more masculine, right? So yeah, it's really good to know. So how do we behave in the workplace when we operate in an excessive masculine energy? How actually our behavior will gonna change?
Sure. So most of the time there is even more aggression. There is a competition, but not a competition where we can create something for the greater good, for creating like win-win situations. It is a competition driven by ego, driven by pride. So those, and we can identify specific companies where perhaps they went bankrupt and the leaders in the company, because they weren't aware of what is happening, they were damaging the entire company. So
And
that
how,
would be the masculine, where is too focused on a specific goal without listening to see the context or to understand the bigger picture, the bigger context.
yeah, and how do we behave, for example, when we operate in on an excessive feminine energy in the workplace?
When we tend to work from this space, perhaps we are driven more on, let's say, we forget about the process. We work on feelings more, but in the business, to manage and to see work being done, you still need to have specific processes. Otherwise, it's gonna be, okay, today I'm gonna do a sales if I feel like tomorrow I will not. And that would be detrimental. Another thing here I want to point out is we've ignored so much our feminine energy that even when we feel it's out of balance. It happened to me actually, coming from aviation and then transitioning to coaching, to training, where I was supposed to work by myself. I was my own boss. So now I know it's part of the, like a freelancer. We have to be creative and work by ourselves, or we choose to do that. So in the beginning, I kind of dismissed the process, not being aware of the benefits of the process. So again, looking back now, I could see at times I was driven by feelings. I was driven that today I feel like a bit low. I don't want to work, or something else comes up. But I think there are a bit, but here, as women, we need to pay attention to our cycles, because in 1 month, let's say we have days where we're full of energy, and I would say maybe about 1 week or so where we can accomplish everything. And then there are specific days in the month where we are low of energy. We cannot even pick ourselves up to drink some water or get out of the bed, but because of the work, we just have to, right? So first of all, I think we need to understand what is happening. So going through an internal process where we can observe, first of all, and then pair it with a calendar to see, okay, have I noticed in the past those specific days where I had more energy? And have I noticed in the past there were specific days where I had lower energy? So keep that for 3 to 6 months and see if you can observe certain patterns. Because the beauty of that, we can predict when we have higher energies as women and when we have low energies. And it's beautiful because now we don't have to feel guilty when that happens. I mean, when we don't have energy, because it's part of our cycle. It's part of how we are designed as women. So we need to be more permissive there. Of course, making sure that if there is an urgent task at work, we delegate, we communicate, we create that team cohesion where if I feel low, let's say we are working together in a project, I feel low, but I know this is mandatory to be done today. But I know because we've created a trust between ourselves, I can delegate that task to you and you will be glad to help me because you understand why I'm asking for help. And again, asking for help is not the easiest. So we need to also recognize it's not the easiest, especially when we are high achievers, driven women and men. Asking for help is not the easiest thing to do.
Yes, exactly. So, as you mentioned, sometimes we operate on an excessive masculine energy. Sometimes we operate on an excessive feminine energy, right? So, what are the consequences when people operate more on an excessive masculine energy? What are the consequences for that person, for himself or for herself? And what are the consequences for the company, for example, and also when they interact with other colleagues within the company?
Well, the consequences definitely creating more conflicts, not listening to one another, not paying attention, not being present, not understanding our bodies. Because when we overwork, when we are in that achieving stage where we feel like we're invincible and we can accomplish everything, if we ignore the signs in our body, if we've pushed a bit the limit for a longer period of time, that's where the body can trigger an aggressive response where we get a heart attack or a stroke or diabetes or some other types of disease, also immune system that comes and says, knock, knock, who's there? Right?
Yeah.
And so that's one way the body is telling us, hey, you need to get that in check. So as human beings, definitely that's detrimental to our health. But then we forget that we influence each other. So if I'm in a lower mood, but I'm not aware that I'm in a lower mood, and I get into a habit of, let's say, nagging or complaining or
Yeah.
gossiping, that is super contagious. And your energy, you can be the most optimistic person, but you'll come with the highest energy, and then your energy will decrease bit by bit, because you are in my a circle of, or sphere of influence, let's say, so you will be affected as well. And then, of course, the long-term consequence, we don't accomplish the company goals, or we lose money
Yeah.
in the company, or we say something in a press release that maybe because we were triggered before when we were creating that. There's so many things that can happen.
So would you say that the consequences for people who are operating on an excessive masculine energy are the same for the company, for themselves, and for people who they interact with? Will going to be the same, or for masculine energy there are different consequences?
When usually there is an imbalance, those are the consequences. Either we don't accomplish the things that we want to accomplish, or we create conflicts, we create it can go, or it can lead to even depression or severe anxiety, fatigue, burnout. Yeah, either both. The feminine energy, when definitely there is an imbalance, things like this unfortunately can happen, and they do happen.
And you just mentioned about this imbalance. So why, for example, it's really important to get these both energies to work together?
We can create so much more when we understand ourselves, we understand how we function the best, when we understand, as you said before, with the values, when we know what values are important to us, and also how we work the best. When we do that, and we take the time to go through a self-awareness process, that usually takes a while. It's not the easiest thing to go through, or the fastest, but I think it's worthwhile doing. When we cooperate, when we create together, I think those are the moments where we can move the company forward. We can move ourselves as individuals, as career professionals, that we want to achieve specific goals for ourselves and for our family. Definitely, it's worth paying attention to and balancing.
Right, and yeah, obviously you're bringing into discussion, let's say, this balance. So how we can balance this both energy in order to have and to get harmony in the workplace.
It starts with, as I said, a self-awareness process where we take the inventory to see, from all these traits, that if you want to go back to the beginning of the podcast, if you're joining now, um, make an observation for yourself. From the masculine traits, are specific ones that ring true to you, that resonate with you. Make a list. Are specific ones for the feminine true for you? Are other traits specific for you? So make that list and identify. And another thing is to see, where have you denied yourself specific parts, right? Maybe you've been judged for feeling too much, or you've been judged for being too creative, or speaking too much, or because most of the time we get judged, or we are judged for when we are in the feminine, right? When we are expansive, when we are that non-linear, whereas we can start with an idea and then go in circles, and I know it's driving certain people crazy, but it is part of our design. So thank you for your
Yeah.
patience. Yeah, definitely to start with this, and then create or take a decision to explore other parts of yourselves as well. Like, how can you improve your listening skills? How can you improve, or what specific actions can you make or take to become a better communicator, to express your needs, to understand? You're like, this is an entire conversation, like excited. Um, what are your boundaries, or there are specific words that might trigger you? So it's
Yeah.
important to really go through this journey to understand what's important for you, what do you want to achieve, um, and
What
as I
actually is
said,
in
the
your
triggers.
control, what is outside of your control, because this is really important now when you start talking about the specific traits of masculine and feminine energy. I just realized, like, I used to operate on an excessive masculine energy in big corporations that I used to work so far, because this type of requirements, like be result driven, um, this tight deadlines that you used to work quite quickly, be really high achiever. So these are the traits that actually belong more to the masculine energy. And after a couple of years, I would say, I just realized that I kind of, lost the connection with myself, because I'm more an empathetic person, I'm more a caring person. And I felt like I lost that, and I missed so much. So I kind of try to get back to myself, and as well as you said, I start kind of become more aware. Um, what are my triggers? What actually triggered to this situation? Why I'm like that? What are my values? What is really important for me? What I missing? What I miss, obviously. What it works well for me? What doesn't really work so well as I really want to? So there are so many things, and as well about boundaries. That it's really, really important topic, and thank you so much for actually sharing your insights about this. Okay, so we kind of talk about, and we touch a little bit on traits, on consequences, how we can balance, how these both energies need to work together. But what is not so well known about masculine energy and feminine energy?
Um, Definitely that it is a work in progress. We need to raise the awareness about this, because they're so important to find the balance. And the balance might be for somebody, not, let's say, 50-50, because when we think like a balance, we think like 50-50. It might be 30-70 or 60-40. But going through that process, and it can take a while. So prepare your expectations, right? When we are clear that it is a journey, and it is a lot of unlearning behavior that we've learned. It served us in the past, definitely. So it's not like judging it too harshly. It's thinking it for its benefits, what it taught us. It brought us back to ourselves. Now we are at the age where we can look back and connect the dots and see. Maybe when we are young, when we are in our 20s, we want to achieve as much as possible because we are full of energy,
Yeah,
and that's great. But then when we switch from 20 to 30, from 30 to 40, we need to pay attention to those shifts that happen in our body. The body is definitely changing. I've noticed when I transitioned from 29 to 30, I was like, oh, things are here a bit different.
yeah,
I would expect or used to a certain level of energy, and then reaching 30, now 35, is a bit different. So just to know that your body will change, your energy will change, and to find ways to be kind to yourself in this process of discovery.
Yeah, that it's really interesting because most of time when we try to get a job, we don't think about this. We just think about what is really important for us, what we really want to achieve from that job, and that's it. We don't think about energy. We don't think about these kind of things at all. But once we get that job, and once we get into that type of environment, then we start to understand more and more and more what is happening there. And how we can master the masculine and feminine energy in the workplace. Provide us with some tips and techniques about this.
It all starts with the decision to understand, to read more, to find more, to be curious in the end of the day, to see, well, if these people are talking about the topic, is this applying to me? Have that curiosity to see if it's applying to you. So then you can create a map of how to go forward. But I think one way to, specifically for work, when we can, what can I say, is to make an intake or an assessment before any meeting, to see our level of fatigue, of level of if we feel rested, and then also have clarity of what do you want to get out of this meeting that you're having. Now, specifically with Zoom, that we're having so many meetings online, some meetings can feel draining, and depending you're introvert or an extrovert, that energy depletion can happen faster or slower depending of your personality. So becoming aware of that and make a conscious decision to communicate that as well. Know other people or tell other people that, hey, I'm on this process. Do you want to join me? Can you give me some feedback? I'm exploring these traits. How do you perceive me? Do you see me too focused or too linear or too rational? Or am I too sensitive, let's say, around specific topics? And when is it okay if you can help me manage this so that I can, do my part in creating a positive relationship at work?
Yeah, and how, for example, we can keep, let's say, that type of high level of masculine energy if we actually have more feminine energy. So how we can keep to that really high level of masculine energy, because that means it's a really, I would say, like it's an internal fight. It's something like you tell to yourself, in this meeting, I know this is kind of predominant masculine energy. I need to kind of shift quickly myself to that and keep myself, I don't know, for the next 1 hour on a masculine energy. It's something that you have to anchor yourself, to be there. So I'm just wondering how you can make this quickly shift and keep that level of masculine energy for 1 hour, let's say, if you are operating more on feminine energy.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be only masculine. I mean, we can start making like here and there little jokes, like cracking a joke and, lighting up the mood, so that when we, because most of the time we are defensive, we might be a bit insecure in specific areas, or we haven't prepared as much as we needed to. So understand where you are. If you feel insecure, is there something you can do to improve next time? Maybe public speaking or presentation skills. And the more we make peace with how we are, I think we will be fine in any type of meeting, either masculine or feminine, because in the end of the day, for those types of meetings to be productive, because let's face it, they theoretically need to be productive to achieve something, to accomplish a goal. Yeah. So it's always good to have a checklist, like what do I want to achieve? And how are how is my energy today? And create an agreement with the other person. Hey, this is what I want to achieve. What do you want to achieve? And together we create partnerships. Together we work to accomplish that specific goal. Otherwise, if I am in my insecurity, which most of the time we are, if we're not, again, self-aware, right? Then if somebody is sharing, even if they have the best intention, but if we perceive their feedback as a threat, we will be defensive and we will speak from that energy. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
No, that's absolutely fine. So thank you, Anna, so much for sharing all the tips and techniques about how to master the masculine and feminine energy in the workplace. Thank you so much once again for all your insights. And thank you so much for having you in our first episode of the Career Backstage podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much once again. And I would like to let you know that the second episode will going to be next Monday on 25th of January with Julia Stark, and we will be talking about how to build smart network in a workplace on a long term. So thank you once again. Have a great day and look after yourself and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.